All right, everybody, so here is the next project. Right here we have a Karcher pressure washer. Guy on Craigslist was selling it, trying to get 50 bucks for it. Says doesn't work, he doesn't know why, but he's got a lot of the extra parts for it. Model number I think is a K4, but he wasn't sure. It doesn't actually say anywhere on it what it is. But from what I've seen, they're K4. I said, yeah, I'll give you 30 bucks for it. He said, deal. So spent 30 bucks on a non-working pressure washer because I wanted to see if we can get this thing fixed here. Comes with the gun, comes with this cleaning attachment, I think, for hard surfaces. And I haven't really done anything with this thing yet. So I'm gonna put you guys down and make sure it's in the shot. I'm gonna go plug it in. We're gonna see if this thing, what this thing even does. I don't know if it does anything. I have no idea. So let's plug it in first. Okay, so right now it's plugged in. It's not. It's plugged in. I don't have any water hooked up to it yet. I just want to see if it makes any noise at all. I don't hear it doing anything. These things, however, might have to have water plugged into it before it'll start. Huh. So, strangely, it's got the wrong hose connection, because this is the same connection I would otherwise have to use to plug it into the end of my hose bib is the one I need to put it on here. So now I can't actually get it plugged into anything that has water coming from it, which is very weird. There's no other place that this thing could possibly go, which means before I can even mess with this thing, I need to get an adapter to allow this thing to take the right hose connection. It's terrible. That's terrible. Doesn't make any sense. Okay, so a trip later, what I had to do was go get an actual, it's an end to fix a hose with that I just put onto this other old broken hose that I had that was leaking. So now I have two male ends on this hose, so it's kind of like an adapter. I'll be honest, I had no idea that, I thought I was just gonna buy a female to female adapter for that. I thought it'd be that easy, but who knew that there was 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, and 5/8 inch of standard hose fittings, and they didn't have the 5/8, which what I read was 5/8 is the standard. So I bought this adapter for this hose, which is gonna work, and it's 5/8, so anything else wouldn't have worked. But what I should be able to do is now screw this right into here. Watch, after all this does not be like where the water's supposed to go. There we go. That now, I don't know if you can see that. That now fits great and leaves me this other end that I can connect to this hose very quickly. It's always loud working in DC. But let's get some water pushed into this thing finally and see what this actually does. So it's leaking a little bit, but that's not a big deal. I'm more concerned that we actually do have water going into here. No noise when it turns on. My problem is I'm not sure when it's supposed to make any noise. I don't know if it only does it when I pressurize it. Got the sprayer. Ooh. So there we go. I can squeeze the trigger on this and water comes out, but clearly this is not kicking on. I'm doing it in the off position now though. Yeah, off. So this is in the on position. Yeah, nothing. So even with water going through, we know the water's getting through because it's coming through to here, but this thing is not making any noise whatsoever. So I'm gonna have to just mess with the cords. Make sure it's plugged in. You'll make sure that the breaker's not tripped on it. So I tried this in all the different positions, resetting it. It's a GFCI built thing because it's a water appliance. That didn't seem to do anything. However, I will say this thing just being plugged in is rather warm. And let me just confirm that without it even plugged in. Yeah, so exact same circumstances, it not being plugged in. So for one reason or another, water or power is not kicking on the motor. Whether it has anything to do with this being hot, it's a 97-degree day out here today. But this thing does feel exceptionally warm right here on the side. I wonder if there's a fuse or something in here I can check. I do want to pop this thing open, plug it into some power, plug it into the wall outlet and see if I can get any readings anywhere to know if the current and the voltage is actually getting inside the machine to the end of the cord to try to figure out if it's a fault with the cord itself, it's a fault with the motor inside, capacitors. I have no idea. I've never worked on one of these before. But now that we've proven nothing's working, we know what we're experiencing, time to dig into this thing a little bit further. Okay, so it's later in the day. I moved it inside. Now I want to try to get this cover off, however it comes off, and kind of take a look at what's going on in there. And it looks like it's Torx bits, so let's find out. There we go. Looks like a T15. Not even sure if this is what actually gets me into here or not, but we'll find out. Screws. Screws in those holes. Looks like there are. I don't think this is long. It's not going to be long enough to reach. That might be a problem. Well, let's see what we can do. Front plate comes off. I did find the model number. It's upside down, but it's the K3.540. So if anybody was wondering, that's what this is. Okay, we're in somewhere. It really feels like the only parts that's sticking on now really is those 2 screws in the hole I'm not going to be able to reach. Well, desperate times. Oh my God, it's that slight angle away from the screw. So when I'm going for the screw, it's anyway. There we go. I think that's it. Felt like it was there. There we go. Whew. Yep. Here it is. So it's there, it's just at an angle. So, gotta make sure I drill this hole. And it's just widening it slightly. That's all I was doing. Make sure it's straight. That's you in there. Top lifted off. The screw never came out of that one though, so it's still in there. But we got the top off. Let me clean this mess up before we go further. Okay, so now that we made it this far, let's find out what we have inside. So here we go. Inside, we have a simple switch. Make sure that switch feels like it was actually clicking. That would make that'll be a simple problem. The on and off. Oh, I guess this is the compressor. There's that screw. Huh. So if this thing sits like this, oh man, it's heavy. Let's see. Switch is now in the up position. Yes, okay. So I was just testing that. This right here is the on-off switch. All it is a little groove that apparently sits in, let's see, it sits in this piece, which is the on-off switch, to twist. So I was making sure it was actually making a connection. And it is, so that's not the piece that's broken. Oh man, this thing's a beast. Water inlet. Hose out. I mean, it doesn't look like there's much to. Pressure washer. Looking for, it's definitely dripping some water here. So in case you want to see what the inside is, it's this, water pump, my assumption is. That's just inside of it, and I mean the rest of this is pretty much empty. So there's really not much to one of these, it looks like. But now I gotta trace where these wires go, because wires go into this case here. I'm gonna try to pop it open and see if I can expose them. Figure out what's going on here. Let's see if I can get you a better view here. Breaking necklace. We'll do that. Oh, I didn't think wait, Where's this? Where's this? You'll slide it out. This those giant capacitors I hear about? Yeah, I hear these things run off of a big capacitor. That was a clip that came flying off. I didn't want that to happen, but it did. It looks like this whole unit. Okay, this whole unit needs to come apart. And of course, it's up. Hurt. Okay, there's one. Two. Three. I'll just in room. I don't know what's going to do. This is having a test to see electrical connection. So I'm getting voltage inside of this. We got lots of planes opened up, and we're getting some internal inside of here. But now that I open it, now there's a screw thing outside. You could see 415. To open it up with. How easy work, and so we have to get this cover off. If I take these off first, I can't imagine that he's going into it this far to be able to get to where the legs are accessible unless I'm missing something very obvious. An easy way to check this stuff. I don't think I am. There's a find out soon. There's a some laser up here. What are they trying to do? I was losing. I feel like it's spring loaded. I feel like this probably isn't the right course of action here. It's very difficult. Unscrew this. And you can see it's creating quite the gap right here, though there's not a big gap over here. I'm kind of surprised. But it's definitely separating this piece. There we go. Got that cap out of here. Pretty sure this is a cap, a capacitor. $250 AC. eCar EcoFill MLR25PRA. I don't know if this will focus on the words. Force the focus, I'm not really sure. Come this far. I'll try to unscrew this the rest of the way. It's going to be very difficult to actually do. I'm really afraid that once I do this, I'm not going to be able to screw this back down. I feel like right when I get this top off, I'm going to be able to... I might not be able to get the top fully off now that I look at it though. Hold on, maybe this wasn't the right way to go because this is connected here to the base. And there's no way to free that from there. Huh. So this is interesting too. So it looks like here, as this thing has been separating, as I've unscrewed it, like there's the connector that, yeah, that, oh, there's oil within this. So I seem to have opened something I probably should not have, as I'm getting to oil now. Oh yeah, there's oil coming out of this thing now. That is not good. So I have a feeling this was not the direction I was supposed to go with this. I mean, that's what learning is all about with these things though, huh? Let me get some paper towels. Yeah, that is definitely oil coming out of here. So I have a feeling that that was not where I was supposed to take this. And I very well could have just ruined any chances of fixing. There we go. So now the cap's in. I'm just gonna try to screw it back down. All right, so besides that little bit of oil that's not there anymore, everything is back in place as it was. I'm going to disconnect this. Actually, that separates out this whole piece of the unit. And let's just see now what happens if I plug it in. Does it make any noise? Does it do anything? All right, so I wanted to bring you guys back with the pressure washer here, and I know earlier I had taken this thing apart and I got all freaked out because it had some oil coming out of it, and I was thinking I kind of went down the wrong path and probably ruined the whole thing. Turns out exactly what I took apart. There's plenty of serviceable components that are in there, and there is a spring loaded because of the high pressure head is in there with all the pistons that use it. So it is filled with oil, and you can take it apart though to do some service to some items in there. A lot of people do say that that oil that was in there usually gets kind of milky because it's not perfectly a perfect seal in there. This oil looked fantastic though because it was like pure oil, so that's a good thing about this machine. The problem is I didn't actually find anything that was wrong in there. One thing I did know now, if I have to do it, that I can probably take it apart the rest of the way, not feel as afraid, and actually get to this piece to do some checking of the actual wires in there in the circuit. I did find out that this is the capacitor that would run this thing and give it a nice kick to actually start up the pump and everything. Most likely not bad, because apparently one of the signs of the capacitor being bad is when you turn it on, it'll hum. I, however, did find a video of somebody, and I just set this back in here right now. It's not actually secured or anything like that, just set in here for standing to make sure it would stand up and not fall while I did this, because I did find a video where somebody says this particular style of pressure washer apparently has a problem with it airlocking sometimes. So what you do is you just run water through it for like 5 solid minutes, and then sometimes it starts back up. So we're gonna do that and kind of see what happens. It's not plugged in to the gun. No, power's not on right now, but you can separate this with this yellow button here. Apparently, push that down. Probably should have done this before I turned the water on. There's probably pressure built up in here now. Yeah, let me turn off the water. There we go. Now pressure is off. I can just turn the water back on and let this run for like 5 solid minutes. Puts apparently water into the machine, and then try to plug it in and see if we can get anything to kick out of that motor. I will say one of the signs of this, what I was told in this video, it was just one guy, one video, worth a shot. Who knows if it'll do anything, because I'm not actually fixing anything, just letting it run. But as you can see, the water is spurting, and apparently this spurting is like the air that's being purged from the system right now, and that's why you let this thing run, because once it hopefully is going to go to more of a smooth stream, and then the system will actually turn on. I guess these things have a built-in airlock mechanism that if it senses too much air in there, it won't kick the pump on. So let's hope that that's the problem. But I'll come back after a handful of minutes of running this, and we'll see where we're at. All right, so while it's not perfect, most of that chatter's gone. So we run this thing for, between 5 and 10 minutes, somewhere in there. So let's plug this baby in, see if we've made any difference at all. It's a little awkward setup over here. It is plugged in. And now, I guess the moment of truth. Here we go. I heard nothing. So maybe this is not the fix for this machine. I might have to tear it down a little bit further. But before we give up, let's pop the hose end back into there as well and see what we can do. Yeah, so when you turn this thing in the on position, you should hear the pump actually kick on for a second to pressurize the system. Clearly not doing that. And this is the on, the up and down. So we've tried the simple let's run water through it trick, which didn't work. I now suspect that there's something wrong with actually power getting into the system. So, because as I said, apparently this capacitor the indication that something is wrong with this is that it would actually, you'd hear the motor humming, but it would never actually kick on. We don't hear this motor doing anything. So I'm suspecting that something in here, in this base here, is faulty. There's either a loose connection in the wire. Maybe the power cord just has a broken wire. It could be the end of it that's plugged in, that just something is faulty with the end of the cord and the cord just needs to be replaced. It could be that simple, but it's really hard to troubleshoot right now until I can get to the end of this wire, which is within here, which means I do have to finish taking this thing apart like I was doing the other day. So when I see you again, we'll be taking this thing back apart and trying to get access into opening this up to access the wires. All right, here we go again. Should be in here. Nope. It's a lot of process. There we go. This is what I need to finish doing this guy. Oh shoot, I have to take off one more piece. There's a this piece right here, I forgot it's connected into here, but this is just a horseshoe clip that comes out, and that should separate. I probably should have done that before I unscrewed it, but I forgot. Horseshoe clip out. There we go. Okay, so here is that coming out. This is the high pressure head from what I understand. This I'm not concerned with. Actually, my whole reason for getting in here was not to do anything with that. It was solely to get to this. But if I open this up, yep, that's where the oil's at. So there's oil in there, boop, which is supposed to be in there. And apparently it's 15W40. I think somebody online had actually talked to the manufacturer, and that's what they said to refill it with if you ever have to fill it back up. Now we're just unfortunately in a spot where while I'm messing with the other things I'm going to be messing with, I have to watch out because it's going to spill. I want to unscrew this grounding clip because I'm looking at electronics. So I think the problem is electronic in this. That I don't think it's getting. Oh, Torx bit again. I don't think it's getting the signal it needs because I don't think they're making an electrical connection in some way. I did, however, just so you're aware, I took this apart, the bottom panel off of this right here, and was able to measure with this, getting this in the right position, 120 volts onto these wires. So I know that there's a connection, that the power is getting through this box. This box is not faulty. There is getting, when you have this thing set in the right way, it's not, tripped. The GFC is not tripped. It actually is sending 120 volts down to here. So I need to check the wires to where they're connecting in here and find out what that problem is. There's a ground wire. I guess in theory I should test continuity between my grounds. Well, I don't know if that's grounding the same way or not. Let's find out though. Okay. That's grounded. But my assumption is, I'm going to test it to one of these, not that you can see. It shouldn't be the green one of these, should it? Oh no, it is the green one. So yeah, it's directly connected, so that is making a connection. Ground is there, making sure it's not shorting anywhere. It's not. So the ground is connected. Now I'm just removing the screw on this, only so I can move this whole contraption to the side and try not to spill it and have oil leak everywhere. Now I got to get into this. Remember I was breaking clips on the other day? And it was because I didn't have access to all the clips I needed access to, because many of them are in the back. That was within the unit. So try to break as few more clips. There we go. Here we go. This is what the inside of this looks like. What do I see? Connections going over to the what is a giant? What is that? So interestingly, there's a giant switch. Oh, okay, so that's the switch for, okay, that's interesting. Whoops. The switch, when you turn it, it actually just pushes this switch down right here. Let me see if I can get that to go back in how it's supposed to. That's interesting because pretty sure the way it's in there, sideways, when this is all put back together, sideways is still sideways. Yeah, because it'd be, yeah, it's still sideways, huh? Sideways, it seems like it would be the off position, or it is supposed to be the off position according to the front. Up and down should be the on position, but up and down orientation on this thing, which would be still up and down when it's all put back together and everything's flipped over and everything, and still be up and down, is not putting pressure on this switch. So this switch is constantly has this thing in the on position. So if something were to happen to this, it's just plastic. If something were to break in this plastic, would the thing always just be on? There'd be no way to turn it off? That's interesting conceptually. I don't quite understand that. Wish I could look at the switch contacts, but I actually don't know how to get to the bottom of this switch without actually mangling the whole thing. I don't know how to take it apart. I do see there's three connectors in here that when you squeeze this thing all back together, it makes connections in to a piece right in there, it squeezes them into those connections right there. But I'm not sure where they would be tracing from. It looks like one of them goes from the capacitor. Two go from the capacitor, and one's the ground, maybe? Let me try to see if that's accurate. So, one side of this capacitor, two. Okay, yep, so that's a connection between far right one here and this one. I don't know if that'll focus. Ugh. There we go. And this one on the capacitor. So the blue one on the capacitor should be the opposite side then? Yep, it's the opposite side. And my assumption is this is connected to the ground? The third one is? No? What would the third one be connected to? Interesting. So it's connected directly, the middle is connected directly to the black wire coming in from the actual AC plug. Where does the white one go? White goes, I'm trying to trace it back so I can check continuity all the way back down. But what we do know is middle of this, focus, maybe. I don't know how much focus, we don't have focus, but the middle connection on this should go all the way to the black on this plug, right here. So this is helping check for the continuity that I'm afraid is missing. So that is connected all the way through. We know the green is connected all the way through, and then white, the neutral, or the common, whatever one you want to call it. I can't trace it in there. We can get this thing to focus here. Come on. There we go. I can't trace where the white wire comes in from over on this side. It kind of goes, it wraps around down here and gets lost somewhere under the switch. I do think I'm going to have to take this switch out. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to get it back in if I take it out. Okay. Slowly removing it. There's a small spring behind it. So here's the top of the switch, and and this is the actual switch itself. So I'm going to put these carefully in my toolbox so they don't get lost, because now I've got more access to the switch. Okay, which can pull right up. Okay, so I have access to the switch now. I'm trying to see. I guess it's possible the switch is bad. So it doesn't look like there's any shorts between any of these. Let me also look and see if now I have access to the switch, or the white wire as well. Checking, you know, on the bottom of the switch here, checking continuity between this and all the way back to the plug. So we have continuity. So continuity is not an issue. Now, this looks like an SPDT switch, if I remember my electronics correctly, which is a single pull double throw. So it's one switch, so one pull, but it switches two different sets of connections. And I'm thinking if I'm betting it's going to be this black over to this. So there's the black on one side of the switch goes to the brown. So this black wire where it's connected in goes to this brown. And I'm betting if I do a continuity test between these two, I should have nothing. But when I hit the switch, they are connected. So the switch is functional, which is a problem. Because what that tells me then is I have, well, that's interesting because that means yeah, and that side of the switch is also functional. And we're not shorting, right? Nope, we're not shorting. So switch is functioning. The right signals are getting through. And that switch goes to the capacitor. Maybe it is a capacitor issue. But I don't think so. And the blue, where is this blue coming from? What is that connection over there? So if I do take a multimeter to this though, if I plug it in and take a multimeter to this, I'm pretty confident we're gonna have 120 volts coming into the switch. And the switch is functional. So it's all about the right connections are coming out here. And unless there's something wrong with this capacitor, which I wish I had a good way to test this capacitor. I don't think my meter does capacitance testing. And like I said, what I've seen online about the caps is that, let me make sure it's not shorted. No, capacitor's not shorted. That when the caps go, the cap is just there to actually kick the motor on. I'm checking the continuity between this part of the cap. That when the caps go, the motor will hum, it just won't kick all the way on, and that's usually the sign of this. My motor's not even humming. Yeah, I don't have any type of capacitive test that I can do, that I know of. No micro. No, that doesn't, it's not doing anything for me. I don't know what that is. So I'm not 100% certain. Does this fit on two ways? Capacitors usually have a plus side and a minus side, right? This actually fits in both directions. I did have it out yesterday. Maybe it's maybe polarity of this one doesn't matter. It's not marked in any way at all. My assumption is polarity, and this doesn't matter because it is not marked in any way whatsoever. I'm gonna have to do some research online about that though, because right now that doesn't look like it's got any problems that I can do anything with. All the connections are being made. That was actually my thought, was that that was going to be where the problem was at. You know, this connector that it goes into, I will say, can you guys see this connector here? It is awfully loose. Maybe a connection, maybe it wasn't going in and wasn't making a connection. I mean, it looks like it would still make that connection. I might have to take this a step further and go down into, take out these screws and get into the coil of the motor itself and actually do some testing on the coil of the motor, because at this point I don't know where else to take this. Let me if I put this back together, I can still get to that. Some water in there. Yeah, I can still get to all that. God, it looks so clean and beautiful. I guess the one thing that I don't know either is if this thing ever worked. I did not get the person I bought it from didn't tell me if it worked once upon a time and stopped, or if it just didn't work ever. So that could be an issue. I'm gonna take out this. This is what I should have done in the first place too. This top piece also has a horseshoe clamp on it. Right, horseshoe clamp right here to remove this, and this would have made it way easier to take those screws out in the first place, so I wouldn't have been running into this thing. So we can take that apart as well, but I'm gonna finagle this thing back together and close it back up because I don't know what else to do at this point with it, because the insides are good. I've done the checking I've wanted to check. I just sadly did not get the results I was hoping. I was hoping to find something clearly wrong with this switch or something, know what to go through, but everything seems to be working fine. So now I just got to find out how to put this, finagle it all back together, and then screw it back on. So hang tight. Well, alright folks, I have a slight update, and I just want to show you something before I do anything else. I pulled the 4 bolts out of here, there's 4 of them around here, and lifted the housing of the pump off, which I believe is just a magnetic field generator, and the spinning mechanisms in here, and this is a bunch of coils. I'm not 100% certain how it works, but seems to be like that. I couldn't see anything that looked obviously wrong. The wires all looked fine. The one thing I was questioning is, like when I put it in yesterday, the wiring harness on this end of it just kind of sat there, and it was just, you know, sitting there. I wasn't sure if it was making a connection into here, as I pointed out yesterday when I was putting this thing, or in the last part of the video when I was putting this thing away. I reached up in here, and I'll show it to you in a minute, but I want to show you it doing something first. I pushed it in and made a solid connection with it with my fingers, and made sure it pushed in. I plugged it in and checked this out. Not going to run it for that long. I actually have something happening for the first time. So let me unplug this thing, just for safety's sake. Bring it behind me. Let me set this camera up here for a second, just so I can show you what the inside of this looks like before I have to actually put it back together. So there we go, kind of upside down right now, but it is off. I can pull this thing apart, and so there we go. So these are what the 2 different halves of it look like. There's top half, here is bottom half, and this is the coils and such. Hold on, let me set this down. The coils and such that I was referring to in here. Well, this was literally just, you know, sitting just like that. And I knew when I was putting it on yesterday, I couldn't tell if it was actually making a good connection or not. So what I feel like I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to force this thing back in where I actually had it without showing you guys, you know, that, because it's going to be hard to show you and do it at the same time. Push it back in, then screw this thing back together, and then go take it outside and hook it back up, because for the first time I have the motor actually making some noise, which gives me some hope in this power washer. It's like trying to force the connection here. It feels like not super tight, but it's not. There we go. That seems to have made a relatively solid connection. Okay, before I screw this thing back together, let's try again. Plug it in. We have success. Let's screw this thing back together and take it outside and see if we have any differences, which I can't imagine that we won't now. By the way, these 4 screws here are T25s this time, in case you ever have to do this yourself. T25s, and yes, I'm unplugged again. Just like these are one piece of very bad angle. Looks like it's not perfect angle, and it's really not. This right here is thing just in the way. I make it a very small space to turn, but not very well. Okay, so it's okay, now before we take this back outside, let's see if we can just make some noise again. That was really weird. That didn't turn on the first time, but did the second time. So let's take it outside, get it hooked up to some water, see what we got. Clearly I got some leak, but proof of concept. Tries to work, build some pressure. Hey, it's actually working. Doesn't have much pressure. Clearly I got some leaks I gotta go fix. But it kicks out when I pull the trigger. Actually, it looks like it's leaking. I might not have pushed this down appropriately because this is the section where the water pipe comes in. It's leaking from right here where this connection is made. So hopefully it just has to do with that. Well, that's unfortunate. It snapped off the foot base that it sits on because it's heavy. I'm gonna have to shoot. I'm gonna have to do something. It sits on these little two black pedestals that actually, how was it? There. It goes like that. And it actually just sits in to the machine. There's one screw that I can put it in on, but it broke in half. I can probably get something, like rig something up to make this work. I gotta fix that leak though. Well, look what I found up on the floor where I took this thing apart. Hopefully this is all that was missing. You can see these two connections here. This one has an O-ring in this side of it. This one does not. So I'm pretty sure that's what it is that's causing this leak. Let's hope that's all. Okay, here we go. I had to move it a little bit since I can't set it in its base anymore until I figure out a solution for, you know, these broken pieces. But O-rings reinstalled. Let's see if that made the difference. Okay, this leak is fine. This is actually just leaking from the inlet. I just didn't tighten this up enough. It is no longer leaking from where it was before, and we have something coming out of here. So let's well, whatever. Let's let it leak a little bit. Who cares? While we test it. So plug it in, see if the pump kicks on. Plugged in. Pump is on. Pump is running. It didn't seem that powerful though. I think it didn't stop because oh, this plugged in. Okay, there we go. There's a little jolt that you have. Yeah, watch out, I'm getting a little shocked on the top of this thing. Okay, it's very hard to deal with. Sorry, probably in the way. Let's see. For it to have just been kicking around and working. Not working anymore. Oh, there we go. So something's still definitely not working. Try. Hold on. Turn this baby off again. Okay, so I've actually gotten this leak to stop. Not that that really matters, it was just tightening it down. This is where my problem is now. And if you can see what's happening here, this is now leaking out of the high pressure head. So I'm betting when I took the high pressure head apart, it made this thing start leaking, which means I'm gonna have to take the whole thing back apart, including the high pressure head, probably then get back into here and remake that connection, because that was my initial problem. But I do believe it's a high pressure head issue, because it's just sputtering. It might be stuck too, the way it's supposed to spin around. It's not spinning right. I don't really know, but I had to get back into there. But hey, something's happening. See, this thing just does not have pressure, very low pressure. This is not a good pressure washer. But yeah, it's definitely because there's leaks going on down in there. So, let's keep working at it. So I might have to give up on this. Not sure. I've made so much progress, but haven't quite gotten this figured out. This is still leaking no matter what I've done. I've taken this thing apart a bunch of times. Let me get the zoom back out here. I've taken this thing apart a bunch of times. I'm trying to make sure all the pieces are in there. I mean, I'm not 100% certain that they are. I'm just, the pieces are in there that came with it. But this is always the end result now. And when I squeeze this thing, it does kick the pump on. High pressure never actually picks up though, because there's some type of leak in here. That being said, we've made it so far with this. I originally had picked this thing up. It wasn't working at all. I actually got it to function. It's just you're now experiencing a different problem. So it's very interesting. So who knows what the story is behind this though? It could have been doing this and somebody then took it apart themselves, and when they put it back together because they couldn't fix the problem, they didn't connect that little connector in here, which turned out to be the problem why it wouldn't turn on. The connector wasn't making a connection. It could have been that I've done something when I took this apart and didn't put it back together right, that all I really had to do is if I had gotten that connector back together a different way, it would have worked perfectly from the beginning. It could be that the hose pressure, the high pressure head just needs to be replaced. I don't know if it's worth it to do that. It costs between 30 and 40 bucks looking them up. I mean, this thing just isn't worth that much. But for the adventure of fixing it, I kind of want to. I did watch a video that looked like it had some different types of spacers in between here, and it almost looks like I don't have the right spacers, but I'm not 100% certain where exactly the leak is coming from, because it seems to be coming from somewhere up top. So if I turn it back on, like, yeah, it's not coming from down here. It's coming from the top of this high pressure head, and I don't know how to mess with that. The interesting thing is, if I move this slightly forward, the whole thing turns off. The connection is still being made in there. It stops doing anything, including when I squeeze this trigger. If I can squeeze it, see, it doesn't kick the pump back on. Like, the pump just doesn't function in this orientation. I was thinking that maybe it's just got to be in just the right spot. See, I moved it down a little bit, pump comes back on. But it's clearly, it's leaking somewhere. Wait, I was gonna say it just stopped leaking for a second. It's so unfortunate. I don't know what to do with it at this point. So this might be the end of this video. I might do more with it, I'm not sure. If there's longer video to deal with, you got more of me coming. If not, this is it. And if you have any suggestions for what I could possibly do with this in the state that it's in, I would love to hear them, because I'd love to get this thing fully functional. We've come so far. I want to finish the job. I just don't know what to do at this point. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.